Hello everybody, welcome to my channel Life is Chess. Today we shall learn from Capablanca the most important phase of chess, that is the end game. The end game is the most important phase of a chess game because it is here that we convert our advantage to a victory, or it is here that we save ourselves from potential defeat. A mistake in end game is like goalkeeper's mistake in football. Howsoever good you are in trapping the ball, in dribbling or in shooting, the most important part of a football game is to score goals. Likewise in chess, even if you are a very good opening player, if you have very great tactical skills or defensive skills in middle game, it will not ensure you a victory unless you can play your end game properly. We take a look at the game Capablanca versus Conde, which was played in Hastings 1919. Looking at the position, it is clear that neither side has firepower to attack and checkmate the opponent king. Therefore, the only way to win from here would be to promote our pawns to queen and have an overwhelming material advantage from where we can checkmate our opponent. Capablanca surprisingly played knight takes f6, and after gf6 we arrive at a king and pawn endgame. White has 7 pawns compared to black's 6. White is 1 pawn ahead, but black's king is more active than white's. So white has to be very careful in order not to lose his pawns by his opponent's king. Here Capablanca played a paradoxical move, which is a4. This move looks a useless move at first sight because normally we are advised to bring our king forward, centralize our king in king pawn endgames, but here Capablanca apparently wastes time, but we shall see this move has a deep idea. It will be apparent a few moves later. Black continued with d5. He wants to bring his king in the center after the exchange of c and d pawns, and black wants to seize the fact that white's king is in the corner. Black wants to capture white's pawns. White calmly defended by playing b3, allowing black to push his pawn and create a protected passed pawn. A passed pawn is a pawn which doesn't have any opponent's pawn in front or resisting it. Now this pawn can queen. The only way to monitor the pawn is by keeping the king, the white king, in an imaginary square. The white king has to remain within this imaginary square so that it can take care against black's pawn advance. It seems white's position is good enough for a draw, although he is a pawn up. But Capablanca has seen much deeper. First, he advances his pawn majority. Capablanca has 4 pawns on the king side compared to opponent's 3. So he can create a passed pawn on the king side as well. Black had to wait. Capablanca now brought his king forward, and after black played king d6, Capablanca prepared to create a pass pawn of his own on the king side by pushing pawn to g5. Black played the move king d7. Now it seems white can simply create a pass pawn, and after the exchange white will have the option of g6, having a passed pawn of his own. But as I said earlier, the white king on e4 is tied down to defense of black's pawn. Therefore, the king is restricted. It cannot move up and support or assist the g pawn to queen. Therefore, both the players are likely to be locked, monitoring the opponent's pawns, and the game is likely to end in a draw. However, Capablanca came up with a move, and now we see why the move a4 was played. He played a brilliant move, that is b4. He sacrificed his pawn, and this in the language of chess is called a breakthrough. So Capablanca goes for a pawn breakthrough. His idea is, if black captures cb4, white would capture the d pawn, which is a pass pawn. Now black has a new pass pawn on b4. However, while the passed pawn on b4 can be monitored by the king, white has a pass pawn of his own on the c file. He will have another pass pawn on the g file, and the poor black's king on d7 would be unable to monitor both the pawns. That was Capablanca's idea. After b4, white opted to capture it with the a pawn. Black captured with the a pawn. Now black himself has two passed pawns, and white has one passed pawn on the queen side. Now in this position, white played a5. As we have seen previously, we draw an imaginary box, a square, from the point where the pawn is situated to the point, the queening square, and that is one side of the square. So if we draw a square exactly the same manner, we see black's king is situated inside the square, so white cannot queen the pawn without losing it. However, white has a potential of another passed pawn on g file, and black's king would be unable to monitor both the pawns. On the contrary, black has two passed pawn which white's king is able to monitor, because both the pawns are quite nearby and the king can very easily walk into the square of both the pawns. The game concluded. Black played king c7, white played g5. After exchange, black played b3, white simply went back king d3, and unable to defend against these two pawns, black decided to give up. I hope you will be able to use the themes of geometry in your game and win lots of games. That's all for today. Keep watching Life is Chess.